Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis, a podcast dedicated to the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. Happy Saturday, everybody. We hope you're having a good day wherever you are. It is so hot here where we live, and so it's not the day to do anything outside. So we thought we would do another podcast for you.
Yep, it is. It is really hot.
It's so hot. So if you could imagine getting out of the shower and just throwing all your clothes on, that's kind of how we feel walking to the mailbox.
Yep. It's like smothering heat.
It's so bad. So Lori was in court yesterday. Did you watch?
Oh, yeah.
We got a lot of notes on that. Just a reminder, this hearing yesterday was only about the charges that stem from Madison in relation to the welfare check. And they dropped the 2 felony desertion charges, which weren't needed after they found the kids deceased on Chad's property. So there's still some misdemeanors that she had to deal with, which are resisting or obstructing officers, criminal solicitation to commit a crime, and contempt of court. So she was in stripes again yesterday. Did you notice that?
Yeah, and we talked about it before, why she was in street clothes the last time, and then now she's back in regular. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I noticed too, just unrelated to this case, but the 3 defendants, or 2 of the 3 defendants down in Georgia for the shooting of Mr. Aubrey, the young jogger, they were wearing street clothes at their preliminary hearings. I don't know. I don't know the law about that, but I wonder if it's a situation where, with this being really high profile stuff, if maybe the potential jury pool, we don't know where it's going to come from. I don't know. But she was in her court attire, or her jail attire again. And did you notice anything different about her appearance yesterday?
Seemed like her hair was a little different.
Yeah. It seems like, she's kind of always had that two-tone hair where underneath, kind of towards the bottom, is brown. And then the previous court hearing, you could see the gray roots starting to grow out, but it looked a little darker yesterday.
Yeah, I think she's got into some, maybe in jail, I guess it's different. So I don't know if maybe tea grounds or coffee grounds.
Yeah,
Something. She's dyed her hair, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I was reading that when you're in jail, obviously you don't have a lot to choose from in the commissary, and hair dye is definitely out. But these girls get creative. They use Kool-Aid, ballpoint pens, colored pencils. They use all kinds of stuff to color their hair.
Yeah, and we know she used the Jolly Rancher and the crayon, or not crayon, but colored pencil for her lipstick one of the times she was in court. So
it would be so funny if she tries to dye her hair like before every appearance, and then something go terribly wrong. I know that's petty, but
yeah, she would come in with like green or
purple
hair or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that was just interesting, I guess. Even though she's been locked up since February, she still wants to look camera ready.
Yep.
Well, she waived her right to a speedy trial, and I kind of expected that. This is literally just the very beginning of charges, I think. She knows she's not going anywhere, and I noticed too, Mark Means, either he had a Valium or he has really settled into his role.
Yeah, he was calm. He didn't say much. We know that last one of the, not the last one, but the one where he went on for, what was it, like 2 hours?
And he couldn't breathe on top of it. And
yeah.
I kind of felt sorry for him, because I mean, it's not easy breathing with the masks or the rags around your face. And boy, he was long-winded and sucking air.
Yeah.
I thought he was just going to straight up pass out at that very first hearing.
Yeah.
I mean,
when he had the it was almost like the like a do-rag or whatever you call it.
Right.
I don't know what y'all call it there, but
yeah, we call it do-rags here,
yeah.
that you throw on your head or whatever. Yeah. But we've talked a little bit lately about Mark Means on the show, wondering how long is he going to stick with this case. And I was thinking earlier today, this case is going to go on for years.
Yeah, it's not going to be quick.
No, we saw that with the date for the jury trial, which right now is set for January 25th through the 29th of 2021. although I don't think there's a snowball chance we'll actually go to trial at that point.
No, I don't know if you got those alerts last night on the phone, but it was like 5 or 6 alerts.
Oh, I didn't get alerts.
Yeah, it was like coming from is it VineLink or whatever it is?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like scheduling those court dates, and I think they messed up a couple of them because one said like January 4th,
Oh.
and I was like, what in the world? And then it was like it was back to back.
Oh.
So it was like 5 or 6 back to back that they were setting those dates up. I guess in the system, and there were alerts going out. So
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't get those. I'm not sorry I didn't get them. My
Yeah.
phone is always
because
alerting.
it was late.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it was late.
Yeah, so the purpose of yesterday's hearing was just kind of simple. It was to address just some housekeeping issues. Essentially, both sides can see where the other is. And to set that jury trial date, even if it doesn't happen, they have to get something on the docket. And so when they were discussing the jury trial, Mark Means and Mr. Wood both agreed that 4 to 5 days would be enough to try the case.
Yeah, because these are only the misdemeanors.
Right. And I don't know if that's a long time for 3 misdemeanor charges. It seems like it, I guess, because of what it's attached to. They really have to put up a pretty heavy defense going in with these charges. But ultimately, these are probably going to be piggybacked onto the felony charges, I think, in Fremont County.
Yeah, and we know he did mention that possibly those were going to be combined.
Yeah.
So,
but the prosecutor, Mr. Wood, he said a couple of times they really don't need much more time to try this case. I think for the misdemeanor charges, with what they found with the worst stuff, with the worst charges that are to come, I'm sure they have more than enough evidence to take to court right now with the misdemeanors, because they all tie into the bigger picture.
yep.
But the one thing Mark Means said yesterday is he was waiting on an extensive amount of discovery in this case, and that he would need 6 months to prepare.
Yeah, I caught that, and I was like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He said it was gigabytes. Like, in other words, he was saying it was a lot of digital evidence, or the way it was being given to him. I don't know. It almost makes me think maybe this pertains to the other case,
Yeah.
the felonies of destroying the remains of the kids to alter or conceal. I don't have them right in front of me, but I can't imagine these 3 misdemeanors are going to take, a terabyte of information. And that's not the amount he said, but he said it was a lot.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. This trial, January 25th to the 29th, I don't see it happening. I don't see this case really going to trial for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a very long time.
Yeah, when we get to the it's a preliminary, and yeah, it's going to be I don't think it'll ever make it.
Not for that hearing.
No.
And speaking of the preliminaries, Chad Daybell, August the 3rd and the 4th on those felony charges out of Fremont, and then Lori will be August the 10th and the 11th. So we're going to have a lot of preliminaries the first couple of weeks of August for these 2 guys, and I think we're really going to start to get a little bit of an outline of the big picture.
Yeah, because basically, the prosecution has to convince the judge that there's enough evidence, so they're going to throw everything at them. Mm-hmm. So they make sure there's enough evidence to go to trial.
Yeah, and the other thing that I've read today is that if these cases get consolidated, I don't really know how to explain it, but ultimately Judge Mallard would preside over those, and Edens would kind of step aside. I'm not sure. I guess maybe because the felonies sort of take. No, wait.
Yeah, right now he's over the other.
He's over the felonies, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, I got a little confused there. But Judge Mallard would be the one that would preside over those felony cases. And still, those felony cases may get combined with eventual murder charges too.
Yeah.
So I don't know that any of these are going to be tried separately. I kind of think maybe I don't know if they can do all these things at once. We're waiting on. Alex's death is still under investigation. Charles Vallow. If you remember back in April, we saw that leak where an investigator in Gilbert said they were close to indicting her. But then we had a change of investigators just this past week.
Yep.
So I'm kind of curious, when are those going to drop? We've got Tammy Daybell's autopsy, the cause of death for the kids. And I mean, if you think about it, that's not even touching Social Security fraud, which we kind of feel like she's committed, insurance fraud with these payouts. Chad, if Tammy's autopsy comes back as a homicide, then Chad's going to have insurance fraud problems.
Okay, so when he was just talking yesterday about getting all that evidence, I'm thinking, okay, what you just named, there has to be so much more evidence there. And they also talked about a venue change.
Yeah, I mean, Rexburg is so small, and I just don't see, and I think this is a very good argument for Mark Means. I don't see how they get an impartial jury in Rexburg.
Yeah, if they move it somewhere bigger like Boise, they're gonna have more jury pool to draw from.
I think so because as popular as this case is, I know so many people who haven't the first clue about it.
Yep.
My 9-year-old, when I'm trying to explain to people things about the case, if she's around, she will jump in and say, "No, it was before she married Charles." Or she's heard us talk about it so much
Yeah.
that But trying to explain this case to somebody is hilarious.
Yeah.
And watching their face just contort and kind of look at you like you have two heads. But I think Boise maybe where they go. I don't know. It's just a much bigger city, a much more probably diverse jury pool.
Yep.
But yeah, so the other thing that happened yesterday was Mark Means successfully argued that the $1 million bond didn't reflect her current charges. And what did Judge Mallard do?
She lowered the bond
On all three.
Yeah, and I think I kind of figured that was coming because she didn't have the 2 felony charges there anymore.
Right. And it seems odd and it seems enraging to people that don't follow a lot of trials. Because if you look at the headlines today on the internet about this, it's just, oh, judge lowers Lori Vallow cult mom's bond. But they don't explain that legally, Judge Mallard really didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
You can't hold her on $1 million for 3 misdemeanors. And I think the total possible sentence just with the 3 misdemeanors is 2 years. She's already served 5 months, and Mallard said she would get credit for time served and that sort of thing. But a 2-year sentence, she gave each charge, what, $50,000?
Yep, they were $50,000 each. There was 3 misdemeanors, so it was $150,000. And when I understand it, like I'm like, okay, Wood doesn't want her out.
No.
I honestly don't think the judge wants her out. No, the police officer, nobody wants her out on the street.
No.
Her or Chad. And that judge, Mallard, she knows she's still got that $1 million bond sitting in Fremont. She's not getting out.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Judge Mallard's got to kind of err on the side of caution. You don't want anything to come back and bite you that could potentially screw this case up.
Yeah.
So I think Mallard did the right thing. She's been in jail since February on $1 million and hasn't made bond, and now Chatty Boy's in jail too. And so they don't have the money to get out.
No, if they had the money, they would already be out.
Which brings me to another point. Yesterday, when they were arguing about the conditions of bond, Mark Means said that Chad Daybell is her only family contact. That she's been contacted. I guess you could sort of, take it to where he meant they have been in contact, but he said Chad is the only family member that she's in contact with. So do you think everybody seems to have jumped off that ship?
I mean, according to what he said, that's what he said. So
yeah. Well, I know her mom and her sister have mentioned that the phone calls were recorded and all this stuff. But
yep.
I mean, you could at least call and say hi if you still believe in your daughter and your sister.
Yeah.
So apparently she's not talking to anybody other
But,
than Chad.
And 2, they have to be put on the list.
Oh,
so
true.
if she chooses to only put Chad on the list, then,
right.
that's the only person that she's going to contact. So,
But I know somebody online that does YouTube videos or something. She added them to her list of approved contacts, but when the woman called, she didn't answer, or she answered and hung up or something.
I didn't
So
see that one.
I'm not sure. I know Jodi Arias. I covered that trial in the courtroom for a little while, and you wouldn't believe the people that would send her mail. I talked to her mom a few times, and I mean, she would get letters from all over, and I think it's probably safe to say Lori's probably getting some fan mail too. There are sick people who love to write men and women who are accused of super crazy, disgusting crimes.
Yep.
Yeah, and that could be how she's getting commissary money too to buy the coffee grounds for her hair dye.
Could be. Could be.
Yeah, and then the prosecutor said that her only family contact is someone whose legal interests are legally adverse.
Yeah, I love this part where he was arguing against, and he suggested $250,000 bond, so it was just a little bit below that. But the way he described it, and he used Tylee and JJ's name. A lot of times they just say kids
Right, yeah.
or her children, but several times he said their names. And I know one time when he said it, she kind of looked over at Mark Means.
Yeah, he had said something about her kids. She was trying to hide the fact that her kids were dead, or it was something.
Yeah.
It was pretty potent what he said.
Yep.
And she did. She kind of shot Mark Means a look.
Yep.
It's like, do you not know it? I mean, is this news to you?
Yeah. It was almost like she didn't agree with what he said, is how I took it. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that's why she looked, but
She definitely looked shocked.
yeah.
But and the way Wood put it, he said she was hiding the location of her dead child JJ when she tried to get Melanie Gibb to lie about his whereabouts, all while telling family and friends they were fine. So he was just pointing out that she knew they were dead during the welfare check and shortly after, and Wood just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, and he said it shows her character.
Right. And Wood talked about the many mitigating factors in this case. And the judge said, look, no matter what I do with bond, she still has $1 million in Fremont. So the judge definitely knew if I lower this, she's not getting out.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and then the judge also said that she could look at mitigating factors, and every single court in Idaho can consider the likelihood of conviction when setting bond. I thought that was interesting.
Yep.
I'd never, and that may be something that's common, but I'd never heard it put that way. So, yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of a calm hearing. There wasn't anything that raised flags. We were just mainly looking at her, watching her body language. Did you notice anything about her body language yesterday?
Yeah. Shoulders slumped, kind of like Chad.
Mm-hmm.
We saw his shoulders kind of droop down. And if you go back and look at video prior to I would say the last two hearings, or not hearings, but court appearances, she would strut in. Like, I know the first one when she came from Hawaii, shoulders were back.
Yeah.
She kind of strutted in like, she owned the place. And these last few times that she's been before the judge, definitely a change in body language that I've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice when they went to a recess and came back, she was kind of slumped back in her chair.
Yeah.
Just kind of chilling out, and the judge comes on, and she then sits up or whatever. But and I know attorneys discuss that with their clients. When the judge is here.
Right. Yeah, it's true. I saw this a lot with James Holmes. I was in the courtroom for some of that testimony, the Colorado theater shooter, and he was very. How he would act when the jury was in the room was he almost acted like he was sort of catatonic, just in a daze. And the minute that jury would walk out, he would stretch, he would turn around and see who was in the courtroom. And so they definitely act like good little girls and boys when the jury or the judge is paying attention. But I always noticed as soon as that last juror was through the door, James Holmes kind of came to life.
Yep.
So that was kind of all with the hearing. So again, August 3rd and 4th for Chad for felony destruction of the kids' bodies. And then Lori follows on August the 10th and the 11th. I will be live tweeting those hearings. I don't know if you follow our Twitter handle, which is Pretty Lies Alibi. But yesterday I did live tweet that little hearing. We may do another Twitter account just for live tweeting, because if you're not interested in getting the live tweets, it can fill up your feed. Because I try to tweet about every 20 seconds.
Yeah, you were like fast finger Franny over there getting those out.
I mean, I did that for a few years nonstop, and but it's a fast-paced thing, and so if you don't want to have your feed full, we may talk to you guys closer into a preliminary to see what you want us to do, but we'll cover it there. We'll do some podcasts, and there was some news about the FBI van in Rexburg.
Yeah, it seems that they have went back to, I guess it's Boise.
Salt Lake City.
Okay, that's right, Salt Lake City, and people were like, "Oh no," but I mean, it costs money to sit there,
It's a lot of money.
and they're still on the case.
Right. I think maybe we can just assume that whatever they physically needed to do there in Rexburg, they've done. And we don't know that there's not people still left in Rexburg from the FBI. They just didn't need the van. And the FBI gave a statement and said, we continue to assist Rexburg as the case progresses. So they're still on the case. Just, I guess, maybe they're starting to wrap up some aspects of the investigation.
Exactly.
So now we wait on charges.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you guys asked a few weeks ago about information on Melanie Pawlowski. And one of the questions was, why did her dad not want her around her mom and the Cox family? So we have dug a little bit into this for you. And so some of the stuff we found, this was court documents from, it was a declaration of petitioner. So her dad is filing for protective custody of her, like he was going to take her. He was keeping her away from her mom because several things happened, and you guys know the story, so it's like this wild, crazy story. But so some of the stuff that this was in the divorce stuff. He requested a restraining order. He claimed that Stacy, which is Melanie's mom, is suicidal and thinks that food is evil, that Melanie was not allowed sugar or milk, and it messed up her enamel on her. It gave her problems with her teeth for lack of calcium. Supposedly her food issues were so severe that she would return the groceries Steve bought and weighed only 76 pounds. So that was Melanie's mom. She was a type 1 diabetic.
You are too.
Yeah, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I take insulin, 10 shots or more a day. And I totally get some of the mentality behind Stacy and the problems she had. She was just real extreme. She claimed that Steve claimed that Stacy kept Melanie from school and from socializing with other kids. She actually looks like she missed about 6 months of school.
Wow.
When she was just little. This is like first grade, so she's like 6 here when this was filed. Melanie felt responsible for caring for her mom to the point that she interrupted playtime to check on her mother, stopped going to kindergarten. Steve claimed that Stacy took Melanie to California without his knowledge or consent while he was on a business trip to Atlanta. Being a diabetic, I totally get it. Sometimes you get obsessed with germs because when you are sick, it's a million times worse on a diabetic than somebody that's normal. So she would require Melanie's toys to be washed in alcohol, wouldn't let her swim in public pools, wouldn't allow her to use public restrooms because of germs. It's a sickness. You get so obsessed with it. I dealt with my own germaphobe issues after this has been 12 years ago, almost dying with my sugar being so high. So I'd contacted a virus and I was sick. So I ended up in ICU, and I totally get it.
Yeah.
But you get so obsessed with it that, it changes and alters your life.
Right. And it can turn into what I assume would be sort of an OCD problem where you're washing your hands 30 times a day, 40 times a day. I mean, so it could have been that was the trigger, but it developed into a much deeper problem.
Yeah, and it was causing issues with Melanie.
Well, it's hard. She's 6 years old, and it sounds like she just had a very rough childhood. It sounds like she was in the middle, just like Tylee was.
Yep.
I'm honestly, it's really sad that Melanie went the way she did because I think maybe had Melanie not gotten involved in all this stuff, I mean, she could have really been a good rock for Tylee
Yeah.
because their childhood seems so just unstable with the parents and everything. I mean, it's just a thought.
Yeah, I totally agree. Some of the other stuff was Stacy would have, and the worse her health got, she became irrational, out of control, hours long screaming and kicking tantrums, irritability, crying. I'm looking at this list, and a lot of this is symptoms and signs of diabetes.
Yeah.
Your sugar being out of control. But one of the things Melanie insists she has a boy named AJ, Alex, or Bobby. She cut off her hair and then began to cover it with a hat. She claimed to be a boy. She claimed to be 3 years old and would talk in a different, more childlike pitch. So this is things that Steve starts to see that start happening with his daughter. And then you come in, and all these are allegations from him filed in court. But then you come in, and Barry Cox is diagnosed with schizophrenia, according to his documents. Janice Cox is obsessed with weight and physical appearance. Stacy blames her food issues instead of her refusal to adhere to an insulin regimen. So when your sugar, if you don't do your insulin right, your sugar gets out of control and it's high, and you don't feel well. So
Yeah, and I do think it's probably safe to assume that Stacy had some mental illness mixed in with that, which probably was just gasoline and fire
yeah, exactly.
with the sugar issues. I've seen you struggle with your diabetes our whole friendship, not really our whole friendship, but more than, when we were in high school, it wasn't a big deal. But as we got in our 20s, it got worse for you.
Yeah.
And I've seen you go through many different struggles, whether it be not really emotional. I mean, you've always handled that so well, but just the physical. I've seen you get emotionally tired.
Sure.
I guess that's the thing is
Yeah.
it's all of your day.
Yeah.
And then if you're raising a kid and you're in the middle of a divorce and you have mental illness, it's just, I don't see, we don't know much about Adam, but man, this entire family has had major psychological issues.
Yeah.
And it's just really, it explains a lot. I think if we're taking stock in Lori and Melanie and where they are, I think if you go way, way back, we could talk for 6 hours about how so many things in their family life from the time they were probably children, the way their parents raised them. It seems like her dad's never taken responsibility for anything, neither has the mom. So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like Lori. She's not responsible for 4 marriages breaking down. She's not responsible for anything. And just doesn't sound like Stacy or Melanie, were able, or Stacy, I don't think she was able to just put everything aside for Melanie.
Yeah.
There were too many things working against her.
Yeah. And it was causing changes in her. I mean, she's washing her hands up to 30 times a day.
Yeah, that's
Wouldn't sleep by herself. Like she wanted to sleep with her parents. So being a kid, when you see your mom going through that, she had to be concerned.
yeah. It's almost like if she's coming in from playtime at 5 or 6 to check on her mom, kind of like Tylee, where sort of you're parenting the parent.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely.
And that's a lot of weight when you're an adult, much less a kid.
Yes. Yep. So in the end, they left. Steve took her. He finally said, after a few years of trying to balance this out and figure it out, and he finally just took Melanie. Said they were going fishing, and they left, and he didn't come back.
Wow.
He did call his church, and their church was very active, I guess, from the documents, and they checked in on her and everything. So he called and asked, would you continue to check on her?
You talk about Stacy?
Yeah, so he left Stacy, And the church checked in on her, evidently by the paperwork, and he said that maybe she could go live back with her parents. Through these whole documents, you can see him trying. He was trying to help and trying to do what was best, but there comes a point when it's your kid and you just continue to see this, just your kid acting this way, and you've got to make a decision. And unfortunately, he had to take Melanie out of that. So
Yeah.
they left in July of '95, and then Stacy passed away 3 years later in '98. So
Very sad.
yeah. So we did a little bit of background digging for y'all. Hope that helped.
Yeah, we still want to look into this. I'm actually kind of fascinated right now with learning more about Melanie Pawlowski.
Yeah.
She's probably due to give birth in the next 4 to 6 weeks. She looked, well past 6 months the last time I saw her. She's been laying low, though. We haven't heard a thing about her.
No, I know. Nothing.
Not a word. It's been radio silence. Now, I'm just convinced she's next on the arrest list because if you remember, Ian said in the letter to his ex-wife, on the wedding night, she admitted she was behind or involved with the attempted murder on Brandon, which, I mean, that's not what you want to hear ever, much less on your wedding night.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, are they going to let her have the baby and then move to arrest her, or are they going to get her before that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm very curious as to what they found with her role. And I mean, the thing is, she told Melanie Gibb that 2 of her kids were zombies.
Yeah,
So
that's scary.
at what point does law enforcement let her have this new baby if they have enough to arrest her and let her go home with it?
Yeah.
That's scary.
It's
because
very scary.
I mean, I'm not convinced. I don't even know what Ian thinks because at first he's worried enough to email his ex-wife a lot of really damning things about his new wife. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, he's beside her on interviews defending the whole situation.
Yeah, he was worried enough to wear a wire.
Right. So I just feel like something was threatened to him. I don't know, but he just changed so fast. But they are kind of where I want to focus, at least for me, in the next few weeks until we have more news, which could come at any day. I mean, there's so many investigations tied to this case. I'm just waiting on something to drop.
Yep.
But I don't know, is it going to be a situation where they, instead of trickling the charges with each death, are they going to just lay the hammer down? We will see.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's still so much to come. Trials aren't going to happen anytime soon, but I think as these charges come out and the more time that goes on, we're going to find more things to talk about because this story hasn't even gotten started.
No. Every turn there's something else.
Right. And you find out one piece and then there's like 5 things associated with that to look into. It's just crazy. I don't think Lori ever had a normal period in her life where things were just normal.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I mean, yeah. I wonder, apparently in jail, people are not talking. I'm sure people have gotten out that were in there with her. And I can totally see her being somebody that manipulates to get what she wants. Whether, I don't know. I mean, some women get in there and will use relationships, romantic relationships or whatever. I'm just curious how she's doing right now. And I'm curious about Chad. I mean, we saw Chad for that hearing, but I just wonder what goes through their minds. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got the end of the world coming up. So I guess, right, until that happens, we'll just assume they feel like this is all about to end for them.
Yeah, and we know she's a chameleon.
Oh,
she
yeah.
can blend in anywhere.
She will.
And manipulate whoever. And we discussed she's going to eventually be the head honcho. I'm not going to say the head honcho in the prison because she's in jail, but that prison is not going to hold people for long amounts of time. It's going to be short stays normally. So she's going to be the the high and mighty one who's been there the whole time. So
And I think too, when you're dealing with essentially a county jail, you get pretty low level criminals in there. It may be drug charges or fraud, like
DUI,
right,
stuff like that.
So I mean, to some degree, I mean, you do get these women that come in there, and I've seen it with other cases where I don't want to say it and I don't mean it this way, but it's almost like she's a celebrity in a way
Yep.
because she's all over the world on the news. So people just probably don't want to get on her bad side and try to, people probably will say, well, if I'm nice to her, maybe she'll talk to me. I'm sure there's more of that going on than plotting against her.
Yeah. And we know she's in a small pod, possibly 4 people in there.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
yeah. And I'm sure, look, when you're with those or you're in a pod 24/7 pretty much, I guess you give in and hang out with who's there.
yeah, I would think so.
That's how we became friends. I just hung out. No, I'm teasing.
I was about to say, what you talking about? Yeah, so I don't know. I think eventually somebody's gonna come out that's been in there, and they're gonna say, this is what's going on, this is how she acts, blah 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 blah.
Same with Chad. I'm curious if
Yeah.
anybody comes out and says, but you have to consider, I wonder if Chad's in solitary. I don't think we've heard.
Yeah, I know the one in Fremont. It's small too.
Yeah.
So
These are tiny towns.
yeah, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. But did you have anything else, Fruit Loop?
No, that was
I'm
it.
good. So we'll keep an eye out for everything. And
Let us know if you want anything researched or answered. If we can, we'll find it and let you know what we come up with.
yeah, because it kind of helps us to stay I don't want to say stay interested. We're always interested in the case, but sometimes I feel like, what else are we going to talk about? I mean, we can't regurgitate the same thing over and over and over. And so we've loved your suggestions. They've helped us to explore other avenues I don't think that we would have done on our own. And we've had some very nice reviews of our podcast across the different platforms, and we just want to say a big thank you.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
I know, right? It's just for us, this is literally just a hobby and fun. And like we've said before, we just sort of threw microphones on normal conversations that we had. And, that most of you guys like it, and we're just grateful. And we'll keep doing the best we can and try to bring you what's new.
All right. Well,
All right,
you guys have a good evening.
Have a good rest of the weekend.